Too bad. My mother-in-law sneered as I walked in from work. I couldn't believe it. The front door of my childhood home wouldn't budge. Huh, it won't open, I muttered, attempting to unlock it with no success. Maybe the key was facing the wrong way? I tried again, but the locks had been changed. I was locked out, dumbfounded. Glancing up, I caught my mother-in-law smirking. Tough luck, she said, reveling in my predicament. That's when my frustration erupted like a volcano. Anger surged through me, but I knew reacting impulsively wouldn't help. Taking a deep breath, I composed myself. I wouldn't let her get away with this. Silently fuming, I glared at her, a form of resistance. I'm Linda, 40 years old, a regular housewife with a part-time cashier job. My husband James is 35, 5 years my junior. We got married 2 years ago after being introduced by a friend. And we don't have kids yet. James often travels for work, sometimes for months. Our peaceful married life was disrupted when my mother-in-law found out. I never expected her to be so vindictive, turning our days into a roller coaster. At one point, she insisted on living with us. James refused, but she persisted, causing him stress. Over dinner, he'd say things like, "Again today," with a strange smile. I felt guilty, thinking I was the cause of this added stress on him. There was a solid reason behind James consistently turning down his mother's request to move in with us. She and I didn't exactly see eye to eye. Back in my mid-20s, I faced a health issue related to female reproductive health and had to undergo surgery to remove one of my fallopian tubes. When I disclosed this to James, he responded with a perspective that still resonates with me today. "I'm not with you just because I want kids," he said, acknowledging that with only one fallopian tube, my chances of conceiving were about half that of the average woman. Despite being over 35, we agreed that children are a blessing, and we would let it happen naturally. However, my mother-in-law, right from our first introduction, hinted at wanting grandchildren. She insisted that we needed to act fast and would bring over people, including a seasoned midwife and a woman who had a child at an older age, to lecture us on pregnancy and childbirth. The pressure she imposed made me sick multiple times, with high fevers, migraines, and recurring stomach aches. James, witnessing my suffering, confronted his mother, and her nagging stopped, at least temporarily. His father had passed away a few months before our marriage talks, and she might have been reaching out to distract herself from loneliness. Knowing all this, James consistently refused her offers to live with us, understanding how stressful it would be for me. Yet one day, she showed up unannounced, having followed me from my workplace. James, furious, confronted her, but she acted as if nothing happened, bringing a large suitcase with her. I nervously asked if that suitcase was, by any chance, packed with her stuff. As expected, she confirmed it. I couldn't shake off the feeling that, given her proactive nature, this unexpected visit might lead to us living together. Judging by the increasingly stern look on James' face, it seemed he shared the same concern. Ignoring our apprehension, my mother-in-law delved into her suitcase, revealing some documents to James. The color drained from his face as he stared at them. "Mom, what do you mean you've terminated your apartment lease?" James exclaimed, leaving me too shocked to utter a word. It was beyond unexpected for her to give up her own apartment. Now, it seemed we had no choice but to let her stay. As we exchanged worried glances, she calmly stated, "If things go on like this, I'll end up homeless. With my husband gone and James being my only child, what'll I do if I'm left out in the cold?" Though she sneaked glances our way, it was evident she was doing this on purpose, fully aware that we had no option but to agree. Annoyance sparked within me, but I hid it, responding with a forced smile. Sensing my resignation, James sighed and reluctantly led his mother into our home. We didn't want to create a scene outside, considering the strong community ties, similar to Nebraska. She took advantage of that, loudly lamenting about becoming homeless, leaving us with no choice but to let her in. James held his forehead and apologized to me in a low voice. but I assured him there was no need for an apology. Glancing back at my mother-in-law, she barged into our home, scanning it as if sizing up her new territory. As if on cue, she swiped her finger over the shoe rack. Neither James nor I were neat freaks, and we usually cleaned over the weekend, since it was Friday night. We hadn't cleaned the shoe rack yet, so her finger came away dusty. She shot me an accusing glare, berating me for not being able to keep the house clean, despite her own apartment having its fair share of dust. It was clear she just wanted to pick a fight, and my shoulders trembled in response. While I wanted to retort right then and there, I've always been the type to hold my tongue. Understanding that upsetting her would cause more trouble, I kept my cool and apologized to navigate the situation. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of her nitpicking. Despite the natural quirks of our aging house, she complained about the hallway floor creaking and insisted we change our too hard sofa. After all, this was mine and James's living space. If she was forcing her way into our lives, she should be the one to adapt to us, right? But she refused to see it that way. Every time James attempted to reason with her, she skillfully deflected with some excuse. From demanding expensive tea to insisting on having sweets always at hand, she became unbearable since moving in. Just a few days with her had me feeling down in the dumps. To make matters worse, a week after she moved in, James suddenly had to relocate for a little over a year for a client only he could handle. He looked down, clearly feeling guilty. I tried to cheer him up, promising to hold down the fort while he's away, and saw him off with a smile. That's when my mother-in-law really showed her true colors. She never complained when James was around, but that night she criticized the meal I made. I've thought this before, but your food is bland. Did you even use salt? And there aren't enough side dishes. This lacks in both nutrition and presentation, she commented, escalating from mere criticism to dumping the meals I cooked right in front of me into the trash as days went by. I tried to adjust the taste to her liking, but she seemed bent on tormenting me. In the end, I reverted to cooking the way I liked. Of course, she still complained, but if she's going to throw it away anyway, I might as well cook it how I like it. Angry at how I handled things, my mother-in-law started gossiping with the neighbors when I wasn't around, spreading nasty rumors about me, despite everything being a bunch of lies. Since the neighbors had known her since they were young, they brushed off her stories and often consoled me, saying, "Must be tough, huh?" That was the only silver lining. As the days went on, my spirit gradually wore down. I began mindlessly shuttling between work and home. A year passed since I started living with my mother-in-law. Lately, she started ignoring me, and the atmosphere at home became so oppressive that I decided to work full-time just to avoid seeing her as much as possible. Then one day after work, as I tried to unlock the front door, the key wouldn't fit. Wait, why won't it open? I thought, trying again. On closer inspection, I realized the locks had been changed. I was shocked. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be locked out of my own house. Suddenly, I felt someone watching. Glancing into the living room next to the entrance, there she was, my mother-in-law, with a sinister grin plastered on her face, looking right at me. "You're out of luck, aren't you?" she sneered. That was the last straw. I felt a volcanic eruption of anger surging from the depths of my heart, trying to take over. Knowing that acting impulsively wouldn't help, I took a deep breath to calm myself down. I wasn't going to let her have her way. Fuming inside, I shot her a dirty look. She probably expected me to break down, beg, and make a scene. Not going to happen. Quickly shifting gears, I turned on my heels and headed to a nearby motel. After informing them I'd be staying for a few days, I decided to use this place as my base. I didn't have many personal belongings, and the essentials I'd need could be easily bought. With that, I decided I didn't need to return home anytime soon and ignored all the calls and messages from my mother-in-law. Soon enough, I got a call from my husband James. I figured my mother-in-law probably spouted off some baseless rumors, so I thought I first had to clear up James's misunderstanding. However, it turned out that wasn't necessary. I heard from Mom. You ran off. She's the one causing trouble, right? I'm sorry, Linda. I wasn't around to help, and you've been through a lot. Can you tell me what happened while I was away? James said, his voice filled with concern. You're too kind. You probably kept quiet, not wanting to burden me, I replied, relieved. I explained everything to him. I intended to keep it brief, but before I knew it, an hour had passed. James listened quietly, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he simply said, I get it, and asked me to leave the rest to him. Within half an hour, my mother-in-law called. You made James mad at me. You probably talked behind my back, huh? You're such a nasty piece of work, she accused. That really got to me. All the emotions I'd held back during our time living together came rushing back. I took a deep breath and let it all out, confronting her with every feeling I had inside. I've only told the truth. Unlike you, I don't go around spreading lies to the neighbors or engage in sneaky, malicious behavior, I retorted. At my words, my mother-in-law was taken aback and fell silent. It seemed I hit a nerve, and after that, she threw nonsensical and emotional words at me. However, I let them all go in one ear and out the other, thinking in my heart, just keep talking. A week passed in a flash. I returned home after a long absence. The locks had been changed, so I couldn't enter directly. Reluctantly, I rang the doorbell. Suddenly, the front door was flung open, and my mother-in-law, looking like she'd seen a ghost, appeared. Though I hadn't seen her for just a week, she looked like she had lost weight. With little inheritance left from my father-in-law, all she had was a meager amount of savings. Her appearance told the tale of how little she truly had. The moment our eyes met, she shouted, Where have you been? I've been in such trouble because of you, you useless daughter-in-law. She seemed to have more to say, but stopped mid-sentence when she noticed my husband James standing behind me. Huh? Why is James here? His work assignment isn't over yet, is it? She muttered. I didn't just decide to come home on a whim. My concerned husband took some days off and decided to come back, I explained. Seeing James's unexpected return, my mother-in-law looked visibly shaken. From her reaction, it was clear she had never shown this side of herself in front of James. He had some idea about what was going on from what I had told him. He was shocked to witness his mother's true nature firsthand. However, his shock quickly turned to anger, and he lashed out at her. There's no way I can continue working under these circumstances. The most important person to me is Linda. I work for my life with Linda, and if Linda is in trouble, of course, I'm gonna come back, especially if it's because of my own mother, James declared. My mother-in-law weakly denied it, but James cut her off, telling her not to make excuses. I jumped in after James. I've kept a diary of everything you did to me. James had already read it, and the diary contained more horrendous acts by my mother-in-law than he had imagined. He was appalled, I said. My mother-in-law looked away guiltily, muttering some excuse. Now is the time to speak my mind. I took a deep breath and told her, This house is inherited by me. It's not a place where you can do as you please. I want to live here with my husband. But you don't belong here, she protested. You didn't have to say it like that. She tried to argue, but I retorted, Isn't it clear that being vague doesn't work with you? After all, you always speak your mind. With me, it's only fair that I do the same. Defeated, she said nothing, shrinking back. Well, it's about time we settled this, I declared, taking another deep breath and deciding to tell her the truth. We've already started the process to sell this house. James and I decided to sell it right away. We're going to pack our things and have some friends move them to our new place, so you should start packing too. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law's eyes widened in shock. Actually, after being locked out of the house and confessing everything to my husband, I decided to take drastic measures and sell the house. My mother-in-law blamed me, asking why I went ahead with such a decision without consulting her. Why would I need her permission to sell the house? Since I inherited this house, even if he's my husband, he can't interfere. Inheritances are separate property, so even if we were to get divorced, it wouldn't be divided. It's something that's not included in the property division. To begin with, my mother-in-law has no right to say anything about this house. That's why I thought there was no need to consult her. I might have told her if we had a good relationship, but she forced us to live together and made life hard for me. Why should I be considerate to her? It's the house I live in with my husband, so I did check with him, and he backed me up, saying I could do whatever I liked. That's when I went to a real estate agent with a certain flyer and asked if they could sell it. Apparently, the properties around here are popular lately, and even if they're small, many people want to buy them. The real estate agent I visited also had a flyer saying they'd buy used properties, and after checking if ours could be sold, they were keen to buy it right away. There seems to be a couple around here who want to open a cafe, and my house is just the right size, easily accessible, and has parking, which is a plus. Normally, I'd ignore such flyers or talk, but given the situation, I wasn't in a position to be picky. As soon as I met with a couple interested in buying, they said they'd pay a good price, but wanted the house handed over within 2 or 3 weeks. I agreed immediately and told my husband about it. My husband found us a month-to-month apartment and said we could live there for a while. When we told my mother-in-law all of this, she was shocked, not expecting things to have progressed so far. Ignoring my mother-in-law, who had turned pale, we went inside the house and started packing. Being a minimalist and with a husband who often travels for work, we didn't have much to pack. In about 3 hours, all our belongings were packed in boxes and suitcases. Our friends helped us handle the heavy furniture and appliances. Before we knew it, dusk was upon us, and the western sky turned a deep red, accentuating the sorrow of my mother-in-law, who stood there lost in thought. Then we hopped in our car and headed to our temporary apartment. That evening, as expected, the phone rang with a call from my mother-in-law. I answered while my husband, James, was in the shower. I had an inkling about what she'd say, but I listened to her anyway. She had always been quite assertive with me, but given her current situation, she probably didn't have the spirit to act that way. She pleaded in a soft voice, like the whine of a mosquito. I apologize for everything I've done. It was all my fault. I never realized you, Linda, felt this way. I never intended. I'm sorry. Can we live together again? Her voice, trying to be sweet, made me feel uneasy. Did she really think she could win me over with just those words? I'm not that simple. If it had been a matter of a day or two, maybe a simple apology would suffice. But after enduring a year of mistreatment from her, there was no way I could forgive her for trying to sweep everything under the rug with just a sorry. Thinking that an apology like that would suffice just shows how shallow your thinking is. I have no intention of forgiving you. Both James and I are thinking of cutting ties with you. The phrase cutting ties seemed to panic her even more. She rambled on, trying to appease me, but it was too late. After all her attempts to sabotage me, involving others with her lies, the audacity of expecting forgiveness was just too much. Suddenly, James, fresh out of the shower, heard her voice and yelled into the phone. She let out a small cry and hung up. We didn't hear from her after that. I blocked her number immediately, and James just sighed in disbelief. She was already in deep trouble, but little did she know what was awaiting her. Some time passed, and the day to hand over the house approached. She seemed to be in a rush, packing her stuff, but apparently she hadn't finished. When she moved in, she only had 2 suitcases worth of belongings. However, after James moved for his job, she'd made a ton of purchases online and at yard sales. Considering she was spending so much, she probably had nearly drained her savings or even her husband's inheritance. Yet that spending had backfired. There was just too much stuff to pack. When James and I went to check on her, she yelled at us, her face red with anger. You two decided on this move. You have to take responsibility and find me a new place. But as I calmly revealed a shocking fact, her face changed from red to pale. Hey, mother-in-law, did you really dip into our savings just because yours ran out and you used up your husband's inheritance? We had kept some cash aside for emergencies, and to think you actually stole it. And the neighbors mentioned seeing you with a young man. Family or not, there's a line between right and wrong. Recently, she'd been completely ostracized from the neighborhood. Of course, the reason was because she spread ridiculous rumors about me. She was no longer welcome at the local gossip sessions, but ironically, those very sessions were buzzing with talk about her. Apparently, even in her 60s, people had seen her buying gifts like bags and jewelry for a young man and holding hands with him in public. Talk about karma. When James heard about this, he couldn't help but smirk at the thought of his own mother, over 60, gallivanting around with a young guy. My father-in-law has already passed away, so there's no one to blame, but it sure doesn't leave a good impression. Whether she felt ashamed or just helpless. I confronted her and firmly said, "Give back the money you took." She took a step back, tried to make excuses about returning it later, but James suggested she should just withdraw it from an ATM now. She probably hadn't drained all her savings, and the cash we kept was just over $1,000. So she should have that much, right? Without a word of protest, she quietly withdrew the stolen money and handed it over. Then a couple, the buyers, showed up to finalize the transfer of the house. We had agreed that they would handle any items left in the house, so it wasn't a problem if she left a few things behind. They were actually pleased there were reusable items left, so we breathed a sigh of relief. Realizing she had no options left, she sank into despair, unlike I'd ever seen before, and shuffled away. Later, I heard she was found living on the streets and was picked up by the police. From the beginning, she seemingly intended for James to come get her, refusing to look for a place on her own. But given all that had transpired, James, having already consulted with a real estate agent, bluntly told her about a cheap apartment she could live in. She silently agreed, drenched in sweat, without any argument. This budget apartment, where she had to share a bathroom, laundry, and other amenities, seemed like hell for her. Back when she lived with us, she was well-fed and healthy, but now she's become skeletal and pitiful to look at. She's barely making ends meet with a part-time job, but her habit of spending on young men hasn't changed, and she's in debt. The interest keeps piling up, and she's reportedly in total despair. As for us, we later bought a new house. Once the issue with James' mother was settled, he went back to his temporary work assignment, finished his tasks there, and then got promoted, meaning no more work-related moves. And miraculously, I got pregnant in my 40s. I've heard it's not that uncommon these days to give birth in your 40s, which is a bit reassuring. I'm enjoying my ultrasound pictures and feeling the baby move, living each day to the fullest.